Hello everyone, this is Liberty Watch, and today, which is August 27th, 2013, we're at the GOP headquarters in Dalton, Georgia. Our guest today is Dr. Phil Gingrey, Republican U.S. Congressman from the 11th District. He has served in Congress since 2003, and Dr. Gingrey is a candidate for the U.S. Senate, running for the seat that will be vacated by Zaxby Chambliss since he is not seeking re-election. Thank you for being here today.
Dean, thank you.
We appreciate it very much. Some of us folks up here in Northwest Georgia may not be that familiar with you, so if you would like to just give a little background in history, a little short bio to familiarize everyone with you.
Well, Dean, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity and to be up here in Northwest Georgia. Of course, we're on our doctor's orders defeat and defund Obamacare tour and bringing that message all across North Georgia. I'm a native Georgian. I was born and raised in Augusta. I went to Georgia Tech, worked my way through Tech on the co-op program, and then returned to Augusta. I went to medical school there for the next 4 years, and then went back to Atlanta, where I was most fortunate while interning at Grady Memorial Hospital. I met a beautiful, bright flight attendant, Delta flight attendant from Noonan, Georgia, named Billy Ayers, who a year later became my wife, and 43 years later is still the center of my life. And of course, we have 4 adult children and 13, count them, Dean, 13 grandchildren. We settled in the heart of Cobb County in Marietta, Georgia, and raised our children there. And of course, I established my OBGYN practice and delivered 5,200 babies during that period of time. I gradually, slowly but surely, like a lot of people, wanted to do something else. I wanted to do something in addition to practicing medicine. As much as I love that, I wanted to get involved in some public service, and I ran for the school board, the local school board, where our kids all went to school, and served 4 years, and then 4 years in the Georgia Senate, and then back in 2002, Dean, I got a chance to run for Congress and got elected to the 11th Congressional District, an open seat. It was not drawn for a Republican. It was drawn very much for a Democrat. In fact, I think it was like a D+4. It went all the way down to Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, and we lived in Cobb County, so you can imagine what that map looked like, a little bit like Indonesia. But thank goodness, with a couple of redistrictings, that 11th district, which I still serve, is a very, very strong Republican district, a 4-county district. I did have Northwest Georgia. I had as far as Chattooga County. Yeah. Floyd, of course, was in my district, Bartow County, and but we are now, of course, as you mentioned at the outset, running to take Zaxby Chambliss' place when he retires at the end of this term. That primary is going to be, as a judge decided, I believe today or yesterday, it's going to be on the 20th of May, and then 8.5, 9 weeks later, there will be a runoff in all probability in the Republican primary, and then come November, I'm going to hold this seat for our Republican Party. And bring some really strong, conservative, common sense Georgia values to the floor of the United States Senate. So I'm really looking forward to that.
We are, of course, there are 7 candidates running, so it's going to be be a show.
Yes.
And of course, moving the election back, that's going to change the whole dynamics of the election. So that's going to be interesting to watch that unfold as well. Yeah. You mentioned Obamacare, and that's one of the first things I want to ask you about. I'm glad to hear that you're for defunding Obamacare. Do you think there's a real chance that will happen? And that's my first question. And my second question is, do you not also think that it may have been designed this way from the get-go for Obamacare to fail so they can move more towards, or Obama push the single option?
Dean, two great questions. I'm asked that often. Well, if Harry Reid has sat on every piece of legislation that you have seen pass the House in the last 3.5 or 4 years, which he certainly has, we've passed bill after bill after bill, and not just on Obamacare, but whether we're reining in the EPA and trying to make sure that we get a Keystone XL pipeline and all of the above energy policy. It's been pretty frustrating, and of course every time we've voted whether to repeal completely Obamacare, and we've done that, I believe, 3 times, or to repeal sections, the most egregious sections of the bill, 2,700 pages,
Yeah.
lots of sections there, lots of havoc. And in fact, we voted a total of 40 times, Dean, and passed it in the House, and occasionally with some Democratic support, and sent it over to Harry Reid, and he just sits on it. So people say today, as we go around the state, well, what is the chances in regard to the 41st vote, if you will, just like when we elected Scott Brown, the 41st senator, and we thought we had this thing beat 4 years ago. The Democrats, because of a little sleight of hand and smoke and mirrors, were able to get it through. But we have this opportunity when we go back to Washington in 2 weeks, during the month of September. We have got to pass a spending bill. Sometimes it's referred to as a CR if you can't pass each and every one of the spending bills, continuing resolution for 3 months, 6 months, maybe the full year. And we will do that. And this is what Phil Gingrey will do, and the way I'll vote in the House of Representatives, to fund every discretionary spending of the federal government that needs to be funded at reasonable levels, at levels that we Republicans think are fiscally sound, with one exception: no funding, not a nickel of funding for Obamacare, because this law is absolutely about to destroy this country. It's 1/6, as you know, Dean. It involves 1/6 of the economy, and the unemployment rate is still 7.6. We have millions of people out of work. The law has done nothing of which it was promised in regard to bringing down the cost of health care. Our insurance commissioner of the state of Georgia, Ralph Hudgens, just the other day said in some instances the increase in premium is going to be 198%. We just heard the other day from UPS that they're not going to offer a health insurance policy to 15,000, count them, 15,000 spouses of their employees. Well, what are these people going to do? They have to offer coverage to dependent children, but they do not have to offer it to spouses, men or women, as the case may be. So if these people, the spouses, have pre-existing conditions, what are they going to do? How are they going to get affordable health care? So it's just one thing after another, Dean, that keeps popping up. And you know, I practiced medicine a long time. I don't think any of these bureaucrats that wrote this bill have practiced a single day. And we know that this bill is bad for patients. It is bad for providers. It's bad for hospitals. It's bad for members of Congress. I mean, this is something that we need to repeal and replace with something that is affordable, that really does get that job done that was promised and never delivered.
Of course, we could talk all night about Obamacare, but one question I do want to ask: what about those within the Republican Party who don't like the idea of defunding, who even make the argument that let's let them implement it, let's let the train wreck happen? What are your thoughts on that? To me, that's a disastrous thing to do. And of course, once it's implemented, I can't think of hardly anything that's, once it's implemented, has been.
Well, you've given me, and I appreciate it, you've given me an opportunity to revisit this issue because it's so important. As I say, when the spending bill, according to the Constitution, has to originate in the House of Representatives, as you know. So we will pass that bill that I described to you just a few minutes ago. We will pass that bill and send it to the Senate, and it will be in the bosom of Harry Reid. And I'm sure he'll be on the red phone with President Barack Obama trying to decide what to do with that. But we don't want to shut down the government, and our bill does not shut down the government. It shuts down one thing: it shuts down Obamacare. And if they want to make a decision, that ball is in their court. Whether Harry Reid's holding it, or President Obama's holding it, or they're holding that ball together, that is their decision. If they want to shut down the federal government over this, shame on them. shame on them. The American people don't deserve to be hurt in that fashion, but it won't be we Republicans. It won't be the 70 plus Republicans in the House of Representatives who have already written a letter to our leadership, to John Boehner and to Eric Cantor, to say, look, this is what we want. This is what the majority of the majority wants our leadership to do. And the same thing, of course, as you know, happened in the Senate. I don't know how many senators, at least 5. Pat Roberts, I think, was added to that list just the other day to do the same thing on the Senate side. So when people say to me, well, you can't get this done, you can't get it done if you don't try. And the American people, I have drawn a line in the sand, Dean. I have absolutely drawn a line in the sand, and Phil Gingrey will be a no vote on funding and a CR for Obamacare.
That's good to hear. Well, let's change the subject just a little bit. Hopefully we'll get a lot of these issues covered. And because it's been in the news a lot lately, I want to talk a little bit about the NSA. Because on the Patriot Act, which is the grounds that the NSA is using to do the email searches and the cell phone listening in and collecting the data anyway, did the Patriot Act go too far, or is the NSA just very liberally interpreting the act? And where do you draw the line between protecting us from terrorism and also protecting our liberties at the same time?
Well, that is one of the most important questions that we'll ever have to answer, and obviously Patriot Act was enacted in haste almost immediately after 9/11 to try to protect the people. We had just lost over 3,000, a lot of them mothers of young children, and that was passed almost unanimously by Congress, Republican and Democrat, in a bipartisan way. We had to revisit that several years ago, the Supreme Court, and we did revisit and reauthorize the Patriot Act. But of course, the FISA courts, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, that was created back in the Jimmy Carter days in the late 70s, it absolutely requires the information that is obtained. There can be no wiretapping or anything of that sort. This metadata collection that's allowed under the NSA, as was explained to me, and all of the members of the House of Representatives had an opportunity in a somewhat classified session to hear exactly what information was collected, and that in fact it was phone numbers and length of time of a conversation, but absolutely no content. Now, Justin Amash is a brilliant young member of the House of Representatives from Michigan, and I want to commend him because what he has done is he has made the administration and the Congress agree to go back and, in conjunction with the president, and relook at this and see if there's anything else that we need to do to make sure that balance of protecting our individual personal liberties and at the same time protecting our youngsters who are walking or running a 1K or a 3K, that when they cross that finish line, some terrorist is not going to blow them to smithereens. So this was a very, very, very serious vote, a very close vote, as you know. His amendment failed, but an amendment just before that by Mike Pompeo of Kansas, which basically said absolutely no funding in this spending bill, this NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, no funding to get information, content, without a warrant, and so whether now we'll go back and have an ombudsman to be there to give the other side of the story, if you will, in regard to whether or not this information, if they can make their case and connect the dots that there is a whether it's Muslim Brotherhood or some terrorist cell within the United States is on the verge of an attack, that judge, that special federal district judge called the FISA judge can make that decision, and people can feel more comfortable about it. I personally believe that a lot of people, including members of my own family, are a little bit concerned with this particular administration if they can snoop into our IRS information. If there's anything in there about patriotism, don't grant tax exempt status. So people are looking at the federal government with a great deal of mistrust, and who could blame them? So I think in the final analysis we will revisit this. We will, and we will get it right.
That brings up 2 points while you were making that point, and I appreciate your answer. But the Boston Bombers, they were here legally. I believe they were both here legally. But I want to talk about the immigration bill for a minute. The Senate's version of the immigration bill, of course I don't know the exact status of that in the House right now. Maybe you can enlighten us on that. But how do you feel about the Senate's version of the immigration bill?
I would never vote for the Senate version of the immigration bill. The Senate version of the immigration bill, and I hate to say it, but our Gang of Eight, or whomever they were on the Republican side, once again have been snookered by Chuck Schumer. And you get burned once, shame on you. You burn me twice, shame on me. And I think that's happened all over again. And this business, quite honestly, as much as I respect and I do like and respect Senator Coker, that amendment to say, well, let's just pour another $35 billion on securing the border. The border needs to be more secure, but do we need to pour another $35 billion just to have the excuse to legalize 11 million immigrants? Even though it's over a 13-year period of time, it puts us down that track of just giving the Democrats exactly what they want politically. And what's the chances that truly is going to get those people that got that amnesty to all of a sudden vote Republican? I think more likely, by treating these people with kindness and decency and respect, and those that are working hard and going to church on Sunday, that we make sure that we show them respect and love. That's how you get their vote, not by granting amnesty to these people that are broken in line, most of them who have not. So again, you won't see this United States Senator voting for anything that smacks of amnesty. You won't see this United States Senator forming any gangs with the likes of Chuck Schumer. I'll form a gang of one when it's necessary to stop bad legislation from happening. And that's one thing about the Senate that gives you a lot more, as an individual, a lot more ability to stop bad things from happening. When I'm asked why I want to give up a perfectly safe seat in the House of Representatives, and I've been there and will have been 12 years at the end of this term, that's really the reason, Dean. That's one of the most important reasons, because I want to be able to draw a line in the sand and have a little backbone. Quite honestly, I think, and we're talking Republican here, we're talking a Republican spine in the Senate who is suffering from a little bit of scoliosis. Now, those of you who don't recognize that term, we're talking about curvature of the spine. I want to get over there and help straighten that spine out.
They need some spine straightening, that's for sure. Let's talk about the IRS for a minute. Of course, I did an interview with Mark West, who's the chairman of or the president of the Chattanooga Tea Party. It took them 36 months to get their 501c4 status. When I think the average turnaround is supposed to be somewhere between 6 and 12 months.
Yeah, that's right.
And but my question is this an opportunity to perhaps look at tax reform? Because obviously the IRS is out of control, as some other federal agencies are. Are you in favor of, first of all, tax reform, especially on the corporate level? Because we have the highest corporate tax rate in the world, I believe, at some points. It can be as high as 39% under certain circumstances. And of course that hurts us compete worldwide. But what is your feelings on the fair tax or the flat tax, or at least going to some more simplified tax system.
Yeah, we're of course talking, you're hearing a lot of talk, Dean, you're hearing a lot of talk about fundamental tax reform. Now, what could be more fundamental? What could be more fundamental than repealing the 16th Amendment? Repealing the 16th Amendment, that's long overdue, in enacting a fair tax. You mentioned a flat tax. Certainly that would be better than nothing, but I, along with my colleague Rob Woodall and before him John Linda, been a strong proponent. H.R. 25, I think, is the number of the bill that I'm a co-sponsor of now. And we could spend probably 30 minutes talking about, but and you've read and I've read the Fair Tax book, but that Neil Bortz and John co-authored. But that's what we really need to do. I mean, how can we trust the IRS? I mean, fundamental tax reform, great. If we can lower the corporate tax rate from 35% to 28%, great. If we can repatriate a lot of dollars, maybe as many as $3 trillion that are offshore now that need to come back into this country, and a one-time opportunity to get a waiver from double taxation as we work on this fundamental tax reform, we can put people back to work. And I think something that clearly should be done. I don't think any other country has anything quite similar to that. So again, I'm not opposed to fundamental tax reform, but why don't we use our common sense and say, this is the approach, the fair tax approach, and get rid of the IRS.
Well, the fair tax would be the only way that would be done. The fair tax would still have the IRS. So the flat tax would still have
the flat tax. So I agree with you. The fair tax is the
only way to get rid of it.
Is really the only way to get rid of it. Exactly.
Fantastic. I want to talk about education. I want to talk about Common Core, which I know the House and Senate aren't directly involved with the Common Core. But my question is, this centralization of education standards, is that a good thing or a bad thing for education? Or should we go in the opposite direction and put it more back in the hands of local parents and teachers?
We absolutely should go in the opposite direction and put it more back in the hands of parents and teachers. Look, I cut my teeth politically on the Marietta City School Board, a very diverse city system, maybe third Latino, third African American, third white. Look, you elect school board members because you trust them. They campaign. They tell you what they're going to do. If you don't like them and they don't deliver, then you make changes. But this business of having this top-down mentality from the federal government is wrong. Now, Common Core, as you say, is a local and a state issue. Obviously, there's some differences of opinions in regard to that. Some say the state of Georgia itself was the model for the curriculum. But when I heard about what it would cost for the testing to keep up to see if the kids are making progress or meeting progress, it's 4 times what we would be paying for testing if we didn't have the Common Core. So it sounds like to me that maybe the state of Georgia, many other states, can't afford the testing aspect of it.
That's far.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the economy. Of course, we have quantitative easing, creating money out of thin air, or digitized money. There's been attempts to jumpstart the economy in different ways, but we have such as far as sequestering or trying to cut the balance the budget or things of that nature because of entitlements that we have. There's no way that can happen. The only way to do that is get the economy growing. What steps do we need to do to get this economy going again, producing? What can the government do to do that? Roll back regulation? Let's get oil independent? What do we need to do?
You just named 2 of them. We have an opportunity right now to be totally independent. If all of a sudden we decided, and this debate is raging, to cut off funding to Egypt, that $1.5 billion that we've been giving them every year since the Camp David Accords. If all of a sudden we decided that that's what should be done, because they enacted a military coup, and that's what the law calls for, and Egypt then shuts down the Suez Canal, then once again we're dependent. We're at their mercy. We need to have an independent, all of the above energy policy in this country. We need to open up drilling on public lands. We need the Keystone XL pipeline. We need clean coal technology. We need to continue to not just go down this road of renewable and everything green without hurting the environment one scintilla.
Fantastic. Well, I wish we had another 30 minutes, but that's all we have this session. Thank you, Congressman, very much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
Have a good evening, everyone.
H&M Herbs and Gifts carry popular brand name products at very low prices. We have been in business since May of 1995 and are here to help with all of your natural, nutritional, and supplement needs with live customer service. Located at 1140 Battlefield Parkway in Fort Oglethorpe, the store hours are Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday 10 to 3, and closed on Sunday. City Cleaners has been serving Lafayette and the surrounding area since 1995. We do wedding gowns, prom dresses, comforters, bedspreads, and much, much more. 100% satisfaction as our pride and joy. Our store hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. and on Saturday, 8:30 a.m. until noon. For emergencies, call 706-638-6369. Roy's Grill, located in the heart of Rossville, serving daily specials, such as a meat and 2 sides, including coffee or tea, for $7.95. Dine in only, please. Or a vegetable plate with 4 sides for $6.95. Or try our handmade ice cream shakes or homemade desserts. Or try Roy's Super Burger with a half a pound of ground beef, ground fresh daily for $5.75. Roy's Grill, open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.